So I guess, you know, again, if you kind of thinking about enterprises who are thinking about incorporating drones, as you just kind of see from the name of this presentation, I think DroneBase is most interested in 2017 at getting companies to incorporate drones at scale. Really like thinking about, okay, maybe we can do this on one tower, or one property, or one insured asset, but actually how do we incorporate this on thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of those properties or assets? So I think that if you're an enterprise company, we at DroneBase feel strongly that we need to come to you not with a 1.5x better solution or save you 30 cents every time you go out, but really like to overcome inertia in a large scale enterprise, something really has to be 10 times better. Now, there's a few axes it can be 10 times better on. It could be cost. You know, some mix of cost, speed, quality of the data, but that formula needs to work out to be a 10-time improvement to really get to mass adoption. So in some cases, the cost is much better. In some cases, the speed is much better. In some cases, the quality is much better. But you want that formula to wind up being 10x. If it's just kind of the same as what they can already do, well, they already have a solution. So you really have to like get to that 10x solution. Probably one of the bigger decisions that an enterprise has to make is, you know, when do we kind of own and operate, and when do we kind of outsource and use a service provider or an expert in this field? And that even within a company can vary. Some companies will say, look, on our core assets or on these core 4 work sites, I really want to have expertise in my company. I really want to deploy a system where there's a complexity there that's really high. So I'm going to own and operate on these 4, and then on these other 30, a little more simple, or I can kind of use a service provider. Other companies might say, well, I'd like to do a little work myself and kind of buy and own a few systems, and then once I'm ready to scale up, maybe we'll start to thread in a service provider. Some people just can't quite get their head around the compliance or regulations. They can operate them kind of 80%, but not 100%, so they choose to use a service provider. I think one thing just to mention, and again, this is not a pitch for DroneBase, it's just more informational about how to incorporate drones, but one thing I would say is, you know, with DroneBase, for example, DJI is an investor in DroneBase. Both of our rounds of financing, DJI invested in. We essentially only fly DJI drones. So that's something I would definitely ask your service provider is what systems are they using? If they say they're using, you know, sorry. But I mean, if your service provider says, you know, we use every type of drone, or we use like these 8 different manufacturers, I would kind of question whether they have expertise in any of them. And it's actually, you know, DJI truly is the best in class hardware. To remove hardware as a variable is really important. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But, you know, whether you're contacting DJI or you're contacting DroneBase, you know, you always get kind of a DJI drone solution on your work site, on your asset, for your jobs that you're doing. Another consideration that any enterprise has to kind of consider is the, you know, manual or automatic flight. I think we maybe have a little contrarian view on this. I think that automatic flight certainly is possible today. If you need to build an orthomosaic map, absolutely use automatic flight. But the systems where, or the companies where automation is the only solution and a human can never be in the loop, you know, companies have to decide whether that's actually the right solution for them, given like the context is quite different. You know, on an insurance claim for 1,000 different homes, each home's a little different. A cell tower company, you know, each tower is a little different. And different tower types require different applications. So, kind of thinking through it for your company, what makes sense to do manually? What can we do automatically? And is full automation going to give us a better solution, or is that going to actually undershoot what we can do? So again, that's just something for a company to consider. Like, what are my unique needs? And then just in general, we see the kind of bigger companies kind of successfully think about like a crawl, walk, and run phased in approach, right? So the first thing you're going to do is not send out 100,000 drones on 100,000 cell towers. That would be, that would be kind of ridiculous. But we've kind of worked with companies on a crawl, walk, run basis. For example, in insurance, typically start in a pilot program where we're accompanying the adjusters out in the field, going with them to each home, understanding the context that they're seeing, getting some knowledge from them, building trust on both sides of the equation. And then, once there's a level of comfort, we can then work without the adjuster. If we can do that, we move much more quickly, much more affordably, honestly probably a little faster. But I think always happy to kind of do the crawl, walk, run approach with an enterprise and like partner with your employees, listen to what they have to say, go out with them into the field, and then once we feel comfortable on both sides, kind of get it scaled up. I guess the two final considerations, which use cases do you want to tackle? Do you want to go do the hardest thing you can possibly think of with a drone? Or do you want to start a little more simply? I generally would encourage, we find the most success when enterprises do the simpler task first, particularly a task maybe where you can take some costs out of your business, where you can replace something that you're already doing with a drone system. Probably the much more interesting use cases are ones where you can increase revenue or do something entirely new you can never do before. But we find the ROI is just much more demonstrable when you can kind of take cost out of the business and just do something better, faster, or for less money. I would also caution you, there's a lot of overpromising in the drone space. Photogrammetry has limits. I mean, you can see how DJI is pushing those boundaries with Velodyne LiDAR, methane sensors, all the 20 megapixels on the P4 Pro, but there are real limits to photogrammetry. You build this map or this model of a tower, when you get, it looks good, it looks okay, you can make some measurements on it, but then when you have the lead engineer sitting around the table with your survey, or you have the CFO of that mining company and looking at your stockpile measurement, and he has to certify that to go into their financial statements, there's still not like a real level of confidence that that's 100% accurate on pure photogrammetry alone. So I think, again, understanding where to start simply is better than doing like the most complicated use case you can possibly imagine. And then the kind of final consideration for any big enterprise is just around hardware, compliance, and insurance. So, hardware, maybe we have a different kind of a contrarian take, but we really just fly on DJI systems. I mean, in my mind at this point, it's like just like this is my enterprise phone, and that is my iPhone 7, and my enterprise computer is this MacBook Air. DJI systems are, even the ones that are kind of consumer or prosumer, are very much capable of tackling enterprise-grade tasks. And certainly the new enterprise systems themselves are the kind of best in class and best quality. If you're ever, and there are any number of best practices in terms of airspace clearance, obstacle avoidance, software partners we're working with, where if you're not in that ecosystem, you're probably not getting a lot of the benefits. So again, if you hear people say, if you hear people using kind of every type of drone or multiple types of drone from different manufacturers, I would certainly kind of question that thought. Compliance and insurance is where a lot of enterprises also get tripped up when it really comes time to kind of, okay, let's get this here legal. Let's really make sure this is okay across 100 sites or 1,000 sites. That may be somewhere you just have more confidence in a service provider who kind of lives and dies just on this space, and that's all they do, and they're gotten practically a law degree on drone law and have gone through Part 107 and understood Part 333 when they were doing that, and has like a more nuanced understanding of the airspace. Maybe they even have relationships at the local tower at the airports where they can get clearances or permissioning a little faster than a company might be able to, for example. So compliance can be a big concern, and then insurance obviously is getting figured out. But that's drone insurance is a relatively new thing. There's a couple years ago, there was just a few specialty brokers who knew how to do this. There's a lot more people now, but understanding kind of when to use aviation insurance, when to do other exemptions is still important and something that any enterprise has to get their head around. So a lot of talking there. Maybe we could just drill down on like 3 actual examples of work that we've done to just illustrate how some companies are taking those first steps like into scale. I've anonymized a lot of the customer data here. I apologize just to kind of keep our customers private, but so for example, after Hurricane Matthew, worked with large top 3 insurance carrier as thousands upon thousands of homes were damaged in the Savannah, Georgia area. So typically what they would do is dispatch their adjusters. Often they would do what's called a ladder assist. That can be the adjuster themselves, or that can be another party that comes out to make an assessment of the home. The adjuster kind of uses their eyes or maybe their iPhone to make an assessment of what happens there. Takes about 2 hours a home, costs about $500 per home. So we're coming out. So basically, we're getting a large database of those properties. We've built a ton of technology that's totally on our back end and boring, but involves like the dispatching, the proper producing flight plans, getting that data ingested to us very quickly, getting the end analysis back to the company. But essentially, what we're doing here is we get those 40 properties, we dispatch 2 or 3 of our drone pilots. We're able to do each home in about 10 to 15 minutes. Costs about $100 a home. And we're not, and it's a mix of manual and automated flight. It's not purely automated, it's not purely manual. But we're not taking 400 images that get stitched into a ridiculously large point cloud that then needs to get sent gigabytes over an LTE network. Those are very unwieldy file sizes. In the insurance space, we have a partner who's the best in class, like roofing algorithm company, where if you give them the correct 15 to 20 images, they can give the carrier, statistically accurate output that, hey, there's a 95% chance you're going to pay a liability on this roof based on these drone images. So again, that's one of those use cases where some drone companies will come with a fully automated system whereby if there's even one tree around that house, it cannot fly. It's just flying a dumb mapping flight path. It's hard to exactly know where the damage is before you get there, and every house is a little different. So with a kind of a more flexible flight plan, that still gives you a much better output, and you don't necessarily even need an orthomosaic map or a point cloud for this. If you can work with other folks who've already solved these data algorithmic problems, it just kind of gives everybody a better solution. So again, our technology allows us to dispatch these pilots, get the exact right flight plan for any type of job completed, and then as those are being finished, they're getting sent directly back to our servers, and then the carrier's getting them same day. So the carrier's actually getting same day, an analysis of each of those routes.
Were the inspectors just like sitting there looking at your pilot screens and also doing some of the analysis kind of as they were flying?
Yes, the adjuster's going to have their checklist, and often that does involve going in the home. So like, there's things that like our goal long term would be desk adjustment. Have the adjuster just cranking through more and more and more adjustments.
Right.
But in that case, I'd say we're more in like the walk phase, where like the adjuster's definitely there. We accompany them, kind of getting their...
The images were like a follow-up product for them, but the adjusters were out there doing the assessment.
So in that case, we were with the adjusters, and honestly, that was just kind of a good information transfer back and forth. The goal would, though, be for the adjuster to just be getting more claims from their desk and just get them the images that, and they're the experts probably on making some of the determination, but just getting them the information more quickly on more jobs. So we say desk adjustment is the end goal, but right now, I think it's good to have a little information transfer both ways.
But I think it speaks to your point about you don't want something that's perfect that's going to take several days. It's like having the information quickly for those guys.
No, because they have a solution. You can send somebody up on a ladder. I mean, it's not ideal, but it's workable. So you have to be substantially better than that to really have people want to adopt this, other than just kind of for fun or for an interesting. So yeah, I think that that's a goal, and we can move a lot. We're time constrained by the adjuster, so if we have to accompany the adjuster, we're going much more slowly, as you can imagine. Good.
You said you operate in 50 states and many cities. Do you hire all the pilots, or you contract with them and you train them to operate on your standard?
Yeah, so basically, DroneBase is conducting all of its operations through our own pilot network that we've built over the past like 2 or 3 years. So all those pilots serve as independent contractors to us, and there's, a couple of years ago you could just kind of know everybody who was doing drone operations and service providing. It's obviously much, much bigger now. We do a lot of kind of upfront onboarding and then much more on the execution side to ensure the quality is kind of standardized across every asset or every property. I'll talk about that in a little bit. That's a good question though, thanks. So that's just kind of one insurance use case. Obviously doing like large commercial properties, they have much bigger policies, so a little more budget there obviously, but a little more complexity where it's hard to just have it be totally cookie cutter. We talk about like a big oil and gas site or an electrical facility that a big carrier is going to insure. But that's a use case where we feel confident that like we're getting towards, maybe not be a 10x, but we're getting towards like 7 to 8 to 9, where like we feel that this could be done on every property. Ideally, we'd love to be doing it for carriers before, so they had like that ground truth of what the asset was, and then literally do the same flight path afterwards. And so if there was an incident, like you could literally have an apples to apples, 1-to-1 comparison of what the damage was on that property. That's a long conversation. So maybe just going into just another good example on the inspection infrastructure side. 300,000 plus cell towers in the United States. There's about 8 to 9 different inspections that you typically would do on a tower. There's about 5 to 6 different types of tower. Today, right now, we can't do every single inspection with a drone that a cell tower needs, right? You can't go plug in a thing into the readout and see how much bandwidth the LTE thing at 100 meters is putting out. So, truthfully, even like the tower mapping, or a lot of companies want a really, really finely detailed, very accurate, 3D model of their tower. But with a lot of the kind of thinness of these, as you can see, it's hard to pick it from pure photogrammetry and not an incredibly dense point cloud. It's really hard to pick up like every truss, every single piece of that tower, right? So this is another example where it's like good to start simply, and some of this is kind of like terms of art in the cell tower space, right? But like closeout packages, annual maintenance packages, the things where it really is like a simpler visual image-based representation. That's kind of where we found good outcomes. A lot of times there, you're competing against them sending somebody up in the tower and then using a laser rangefinder from the ground, which is accurate kind of to the foot within a few feet. So certainly a geo-referenced image from any DJI system is going to give a better output there. Anytime you get somebody up in a tower, you're talking, 500 to 1,000 to many more times that, depending on the complexity. So again, we're going out, typically doing this for around $100 a tower, and it's typically quite faster than setting that person up. It can be quite dangerous setting a person up as well. So we feel good about, again, and the quality is better. So again, hitting all those axes, several times better. So we feel good about getting to kind of 10 times better there. There are some particular challenges with cell towers. I think that's why we're excited to see the Z30 here. It is that tool will be critical, I think, in the cell tower space for a few reasons. First, they're not as bad as electric towers, which throw off a ton of magnetic interference. But you can only, with a certain proximity to a cell tower, you will get a good amount of magnetic interference. So to be able to zoom in there, to be able to get a little more standoff, the Z30 will really help. The other kind of, again, surprise you might find in the field, as you always do, there's a ton of small coaxial cables that connect all these towers. They're very thin, they're made of steel. You do not want a drone blade clipping them, and they're very hard, and they're a bit hard to see. So again, that's another reason why a little standoff from the tower would be great, because it's just a bad day for everybody if you hit any of those little steel wires. Again, if you were kind of in San Francisco planning out a perfect flight path, that may not be something you think about, but when you get on the ground, there's often some things you didn't pick up from Google Earth or kind of from your planning perspective. And those little wires are even a challenge for even a good kind of sonar LiDAR sensor. So I think that what DJI is doing incorporating LiDAR, what DJI is doing incorporating zoom, is going to unlock probably the next like 3 or 4 inspections that we couldn't previously do that now will be possible. So we can do even more, take even more of that kind of shared inspections. So again, some unique challenges here, but another, and this just kind of speaks to why a little expertise and not trying to automate everything is a good idea, just because there are 5 or 6 different types of tower, from a simple cell array to a more complicated GED tower. They all have their own kind of quirks, so you can get a good flight plan for each one, but each one requires a little context. So I guess just maybe cover down on one more of these. Talk about using drones in construction. I think you'll hear a lot about construction today. I'd say it's maybe the most developed of all of the kind of verticals where people are using drones to serve end customers. So, you know, we really think about this again, not really think about this at scale, like across tens or hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of work sites, right? So just one example, working with an international construction company, we go to 50, over 50 of their work sites every month, and we're providing a visual project update for their CEO, right? Our tool allows that CEO to add the right kind of 8 or 9 people from each work site discreetly to each project, and collaborate and kind of work with them. And then essentially every month they're getting a visual project update of the progress of that site. That comes through as imagery, videos, maps, or models, kind of depending on where they are in the process. And then again, 5 or 6 people can kind of communicate on ground truth. So it's not somebody's opinion, it's not somebody, it's not kind of contextual. You're not just sending somebody around, sending you a text message saying, hey, we're looking good on Arizona. No, in fact, the CEO here could drill down into any of these 50, open up that site, compare March to April, exact same flight path, or compare Tampa to Chicago and say, hey, we thought we were going to be ahead here, what's the problem? I think that we've probably gone a little too heavy on the mapping side and solely on mapping in construction. Again, using photogrammetry, it will give you some insight, certainly. I think that a map of a construction site is a great output. But it doesn't, I think if you just do a purely automated map, you're still kind of underselling what the full potential of a drone is at a construction site, right? I mean, to really give the full contextual update, I think a mix of images, videos, map, and model will really tell you the entirety of what's going on there. And you may need to do different things at different times, right? When it's just a dirt lot, I mean, a survey will do. When you kind of have maybe the steel frame up, then a model may make sense, but it may not make sense the next month. So again, like tailoring that visual project update to be priced affordably. Again, we're trying to go out and do these visual updates for anywhere from $200 to $500, depending on the complexity. That feels like a very reasonable price for a CEO to really have full understanding of everything that's going on in their work sites. We generally prefer to start with manual flight and then just kind of graduate into automation as we kind of, here's the right flight path to model the site, here's the right flight path to map the site, but hey, the first 3 or 4 times, let's do this manually so we understand what the context is here. Yes. Yeah. Yep. We'll give them a very specified flight plan, but there's always room for context, and you want to get that skilled operator's understanding of what's going on the ground as well. So, I guess if I had to make any pitch here, I would say that as we've worked with companies, I think, and at DroneBase, we feel that 2017 is kind of the year of deploying these systems. in the enterprise, right? Moving off, graduating from the pilot program, graduating from kind of the one-off, and really deploying these assets, deploying this technology across all of your assets, across all of your work sites. There are not barriers technologically, and now with Part 107, there's not barriers from a regulatory perspective. I mean, there's some, but they're much, much lower. So it's really just I think the companies who kind of cross the chasm and take that leap are going to have a significant competitive advantage in 2017 in terms of cost reduction, in terms of revenue generation. Really, like the people who get this to scale first will have a competitive advantage. I would say that as businesses, you really need to tailor your approach to your business. For better or worse, like companies in San Francisco, I think a lot of the software companies, they really want to provide kind of a total cookie cutter solution, but you have to make sure this makes sense for your business. And everyone's business is a little different, so you really have to think for your business. Like don't just listen to someone's sales pitch. Like, when does it make sense to own or operate? I'll give you a very honest answer if you contact us. Whether you should just call DJI and outfit a fleet of drones, or you should use us, or how we should make that mix happen. How much should you automate? Should you go should you try having no human being in the loop? Do you want full manual control? Probably the best option usually is a mix of both. How do you scale off that initial pilot? When do you kind of crawl? When do you walk? And when do you run? Would always recommend like an initial flight just to kind of understand how we work or how this works in general. But then when do you decide to kind of scale up? And then, really like what tools do you need to kind of discuss or analyze these outputs? Is there an algorithm or is there data that your company has on a proprietary basis that we can leverage? Or do we need to kind of understand, once we get the right inputs in, how do we get it to a decision-making output for you? Every company is a little different. A lot of companies we work with have their own proprietary kind of solutions that they just want the inputs and they can get themselves to value. Others don't have that, and we will help just get that full solution. But like, we have to actually solve your problem. If we just send you a bunch of images or videos, like, we haven't really solved your problem. So ensuring that you actually get to value, and we don't leave you on like the 5-yard line after doing all this work, is really important. I guess maybe I'll just give one more pitch on being a drone pilot. So at DroneBase, like, we really do feel that being a drone pilot is a profession. And I say that as, even if you are an operating company, I would recommend that you identify a few people who can gain skills in this technology, even if that's their secondary job description, or even if that's just kind of a part-time thing for them at first. Like, I really would invest in people in-house. I would invest in people in your company to gain familiarity, go out and operate, get some subject matter expertise, get some flight time and flight hours, work with people at DJI, work with DroneBase to help professionalize yourself. Outside of a company, we really do strongly feel that drone pilots should be a profession. I've watched thousands and tens of thousands of people go from, we were all hobbyists 4 or 5 years ago. Some have started being able to do things part-time. It's been really exciting to see people start to do things full-time. Even more exciting to see those same people get a few people in their company and now they're running their own small business. It is a new skills-based small business that you can run. It's kind of it's not as hard, you don't need a PhD from MIT to do it, but it's also not totally undifferentiated where it's a complete commodity. It probably could exist as a technical trade that we probably need many, many more of. And so I guess just the final thoughts on that are, we find the best pilots come from a place of deep vertical expertise and then use this technology to go back and address their vertical. Full autonomy, again, I think people who think that, again, I hear different things, right? This is probably a contrarian view on our part. I hear a lot of people say, oh, doesn't matter, like the whole thing's gonna be always automatic, purely automated flight, don't even worry about the person, they're just gonna push a button, that's all, you just need like a meat sack to push a button. But I actually think that well undershoots what is actually possible, and I think what we should be focused on is if you automated these 5 things, what higher value added task could this skilled pilot do on the ground while the flight is happening to make this all go faster and work better? So there's real like skills here behind this. And then just in general, why deployment is important is I think that like volume does unlock value for both the customer and the pilot. I hear over and over again, customers getting $2,500, $3,000 quotes for a drone inspection. That's first of all, it's kind of ridiculous, but second of all, it just my fear is that we never get somebody to ROI on that expensive a flight if that needs to happen across 100,000 sites. So the more we can work at volume and deploy these things in a simple way, straightforward way, the better the economics look for the customer, and the better the economics look for a pilot. Like the pilot is recharging an electric battery and wiping data off an SD card. Their time and labor are definitely valuable and important, but the incremental cost of doing more work is not that high. So really, like getting this whole space of volume, we're excited for those first for the companies who take that lead in 2017. All right, so that's a lot talking by me. I guess just very quickly on us, if you want more information on us, we work closely with the FAA and the White House. We're at the White House's event in October, where they're kind of announcing Part 107. Went back again 2 months later for some follow-up. We have kind of best-in-class investors, of course, including DJI, and work very closely with them in their SDK. Also, venture investors like Unisware Ventures, Excel, Upfront. We went to Y Combinator, the Startup Accelerator. So, either way, I think you can be confident when you call DroneBase, you will get a kind of best-in-class solution. We'll give you a very honest opinion. You'll get a DJI drone solution, which we feel confident about as well. So again, if it's just either way, like we just want anybody who comes to us will get a really solid DJI-based solution, and we just want to have nobody walk away from the table and be able to incorporate these systems in 2017. So that's kind of what I was thinking, and happy to open it up here to questions that you may have.